Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the third ceremony of Japan-ASEAN Bridges event series. My name is Ciechanover, lecturer from Faculty of Pharmaceutical Science, Prince of Songkla University. I am your MC for today's event. Ladies and gentlemen, this year marks the 55th anniversary of the establishment of Prince of Songkla University. In the celebration of this remarked anniversary, Prince of Songkla University has collaborated with the International Peace Foundation to hold a series of exclusive lectures by 5 Nobel Laureates at PSU Hat Yai campus. Furthermore, these special lectures are also part of the Japan-ASEAN Bridges event series to celebrate the 50th anniversary of Japan-ASEAN relations. Facilitated by International Peace Foundation, sponsored by Mitsui Fudosan Group, Dusit Thani Hotel and Resort, Kasikorn Bank Public Company Limited, BMW Thailand Company Limited. The Japan-ASEAN Bridges event series will take place in both in Thailand and Japan, featuring events by several hosts from the two countries. Prince of Songkla University is proud to announce an inspiring series of the talk co-hosted by distinguished faculty. Yes, as you know, there are 5 events for this anniversary. The first 2 already conducted last year. And the next one after this event gonna be conducted on the 1st of March 2024. Faculty of Economics will host this lecture. The Prospect for Global Financial Stability by Professor Robert F. Eagle, Nobel Laureate in Economics at the PSU International Conference Center. And the last one, titled The Role of Basic Science in Biotechnology by Professor Randy W. Chapman, Nobel Laureate in Medicine, hosted by the Faculty of Medicine and gonna be on 27 March 2024 at Thongjan Hongradarom Room, Faculty of Medicine. And now it is marked at the third one. We have a Faculty of Pharmaceutical Science presenting the talk titled Personalized Medicine Revolution. Are we going to cure all diseases and at what price? By Professor Aaron Ciechanover, Nobel Laureate in Chemistry. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the time for the opening of the third ceremony of the Japan-ASEAN Bridges event series. As we know that the ceremony is co-hosted by the Faculty of Pharmaceutical Science. So firstly, I would like to invite Associate Professor Dr. Nimit Warakul, Dean of Faculty of Pharmaceutical Science, to come to extend his welcoming remarks. Put your hand together and please welcome our Dean, please.
Esteemed President, Assistant Professor Diwat Keo Pradap, Honorable Professor Aaron Ciechanover, Nobel Laureate for Chemistry, Mr. Uwe Morawetz, Founding Chairman of the International Peace Foundation, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, I am Associate Professor Nimit Warakul, Dean of Faculty of Pharmaceutical Sciences, Prince of Songkla University. I would like to give you all a warm welcome to the third talk of the Japan-ASEAN Bridges event series here at PSU, co-hosted by the Faculty of Pharmaceutical Sciences. When our faculty was established about 45 years ago as the first institution of higher education in pharmaceutical sciences in the southern part of Thailand, we could not have imagined that one day we'll be here, honored to co-host a talk on the topic of personalized medicine by an esteemed Nobel Laureate. Indeed, The impressive credentials and groundbreaking work of the Honorable Professor Aaron Ciechanover make us excited to learn about the challenges and implications of personalized medicine, a topic that will certainly affect our lives in the near future. The topic is of great interest to PSU in general and our faculty in particular, since we have been continuously striving to provide the best healthcare to our communities in accordance with PSU guiding principles. As of lately, the Faculty of Pharmaceutical Sciences has been elevating these endeavors to the international level. In our quest to be a leading school of pharmacy, renowned for excellence in knowledge and innovation for the benefits of mankind, I am certain that our perseverance, aided by the insights of the esteemed Nobel Laureate, will further inspire our faculties, staffs, and students to reach the goal and play a valuable role in the international healthcare community. Again, it is indeed a great privilege for the Faculty of Pharmaceutical Sciences to co-host the third talk of the JAPAN-ASEAN BRIDGES event series at PSU, and I am grateful to all who made this opportunity possible. As we come to the conclusion, I'm honored to invite PSU President, Assistant Professor Niwat Kelpradap to kindly deliver the opening remarks. Thank you.
Honorable Professor Aaron Ciechanover, Nobel Laureate for Chemistry, Associate Professor Dr. Nimit Warakul, Dean of Faculty of Pharmaceutical Science, Associate Professor Rungsak Lee Thanaporn, Dean of the Faculty of Medicine, esteemed Mr. Uwe Morawetz, Founding Chairman of the International Peace Foundation, senior lecturers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Prince of Songkla University, it is my pleasure to join the third event under the Japan-ASEAN BRIDGES event series on the occasion of PSU's 55th anniversary. We are grateful to be able to host 5 auspicious events under the series in collaboration with the International Peace Foundation. I am proud to note that Prince of Songkla University has been leading in terms of innovation, research, and higher education, both in the southern region and nationwide. A large part of this success is due to our excellent faculties. For example, Faculty of Pharmaceutical Science, which has been an integral part of PSU since the Faculty's foundation for 46 years ago. That is why I am confident that today's event, co-hosted by the Faculty of Pharmaceutical Science, will both increase our institution's global visibility, research networking, and reputation, also serve as significant milestone towards the betterment of society. Ladies and gentlemen, I strongly believe that the insights we will gain from today's talk, personalized medicine revolution, are we going to cure all diseases and at what price, delivered by the Honorable Professor Aaron Ciechanover, will inspire our faculty, students, and all participants towards achieving greater goals and elevating our community to greater heights. As come to the end, I would like to extend our special appreciation to Professor Aaron Ciechanover, Nobel Laureate in Chemistry, for sharing his inspirational wisdom with us today. I would also like to express our gratitude once again to the PSU Faculty of Pharmaceutical Science for co-hosting this auspicious event, and to the International Peace Foundation for starting PSU to make this event possible. Finally, I wish to convey my sincere wishes that this talk would become a successful event, able to inspire all audience, especially the youth in southern Thailand. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, the Dean and the President. And now, it's my honor to invite Mr. Uwe Morawetz, the founding chairman of International Peace Foundation, to give the introductory remark to the event and our special keynotes. Thank you. Big round of applause for him, please.
Sawadee Krap, and welcome to the Japan-ASEAN Bridges event series, which is facilitated by the Vienna-based International Peace Foundation. The events are hosted in cooperation with the country's most important universities, and I would like to thank Prince of Songkla University for hosting our event today. Commemorating the 50th anniversary of official relations between Japan and the ASEAN region, Bridges is continuously held in Thailand and Japan until March, involving the participation of Nobel Laureates for physics, chemistry, medicine, and economics. The Japan Bridges event series follows the series of over 800 Bridges events, which the International Peace Foundation has facilitated since 2003 to support education in the ASEAN region. As peace cannot be achieved instantly, but is a process which needs time, Bridges has not been organized as a single conference, but as an ongoing series of events of now over 2 decades, in which Nobel laureates and international decision makers have built strong bridges with leaders in all parts of societies and with the general public. With the basis for peace being education and synergies being the fruit of cooperation, the International Peace Foundation has not realized Bridges alone, but has carried out the program together with UNESCO and with 179 other national and international institutions, including 106 major universities and schools across the ASEAN region. The multidisciplinary and pluralistic approach of Bridges in the Philippines, Malaysia, Cambodia, Vietnam, Singapore, Indonesia, Laos, and of the events now in Thailand reflects that peace involves all parts of society. It involves awareness and social responsibility of politicians, the business community, scientists, artists, and the media. And since peace within ourselves, our families, and our environment starts in our minds and hearts. It involves every one of us. In this sense, Bridges challenges us to cross borders and to build bridges by listening and opening up to other viewpoints, by generating new thoughts, by developing innovative forms of cooperation, and by fulfilling the desire of everyone to get to know and to learn from each other. This can lead us to a world in which we will be able to understand each other and the complexities we face together in a new light. So let us be inspired by the knowledge and the wisdom that Bridges continues to offer. An opportunity to get a more inclusive, interconnected, and comprehensive view of ourselves and the world in which we live in, and which we can create anew constantly through dialogues towards a culture of peace, which needs the involvement of every one of us. So I thank the 2004 Nobel Laureate for Chemistry, Professor Aaron Ciechanover, who has agreed to come again to Thailand to support the events, and we now look forward to his speech and to his important contribution to build bridges. Welcome, Professor Aaron Ciechanover.
Okay, good afternoon. First of all, there are two birthdays that we are celebrating today, the 55th anniversary of the university and the 45th anniversary of the Faculty of Pharmaceutical Sciences. So, happy birthday to both. And maybe we shall celebrate many more. You know, in Hebrew we say, and many more returns. Then I wanted to say something about, Thailand is a country that I've been to more than 20 times. And I love the country a lot, the people, the food, the landscape. It's a gorgeous country. And I always accepted here very warmly. So I kind of thinking that why I'm deserved such a warm hospitality. And people say, oh, you're a Nobel laureate. So then I say to people, mostly to students, that Nobel laureates are human beings. They're regular human beings. They have two hands and two eyes and two legs, and they eat food and they enjoy life. So there is nothing magic about it. Really, there is nothing magic about it. But people nevertheless ask me about the secrets of success. So there are no secrets. I mean, I hold nothing in my pockets. I think that, it's some kind of a character. You need to be very passionate about what you are doing, of course. You have to be addicted, as a matter of fact, to what you are doing. You need to withstand frustration. In science, there are a lot of frustrations. Nothing is coming easy. You have to be a believer, and so on and so forth. But really, there is nothing magic. And also, you need to be lucky. People are, you need to have the stars turning in the right direction at the right time. You have to be with the right people at the right time, asking the right questions, of course. And you need to be lucky. But, when people ask me, what about luck? Luck is something that we don't control. It's not in our hands. I say, yes, you do control it. How you control luck? Lottery is the ultimate in luck, right? In order to win a lottery, you need to be very lucky. But nevertheless, in order to win the lottery, you need to buy a ticket. So you need to do something even in order to win the lottery. So you have some control on your luck. You need to be to choose the right people, the right mentors, the right subject. And I think that the real secret is, beside your own passion and will and drive, is to be with the good people in good places. And that's something that I learned very, very quickly. So I'm coming from a very small country. I'm coming from Israel. It's a country of 9 million people. We have 12 Nobel laureates in the country, only 3 in my university. And I always aspired to go higher, so when I finished my studies, I'm a physician, by the way, I'm a surgeon by training. Science for me is kind of a hobby. I started very late. I am a late bloomer in science. I spent many years in the operating theater. And then I did some training in science, and then I went to the United States for further training, for postdoctoral training, and I went to MIT, which is one of the premier institutes, and to work with very good people. So you always, if you are with good people, something is infectious in the air that sticks to you. So that's for the introduction. I'm currently a member of the Faculty of Medicine, working a lot with physicians. There are many physicians in our lab. And I'll tell you very briefly what we are doing in the lab, because this is not the subject of my talk. The subject is very different. I'll tell you very briefly what we are doing, what we did and we are still doing in the lab. As you know, our body is made of proteins. You know, the proteins are the machines that are running us. I mean, the fact that I stand in front of you now and I don't fall means that I get signals from the space to stand right. I see you, so I can keep my balance. The muscles are made of proteins, are actin and myosin that keep the muscle tense. The red blood, why the blood is red? There is a protein called hemoglobin that carries oxygen and carbon dioxide. The antibodies that we all developed, or most of us, or those that got sick or got immunized against corona, are antibodies. Are proteins, sorry. We are made of about 25,000 different proteins that I always say that they played a beautiful symphony called the Symphony of Life, and they play it without a conductor. That's amazing. You know, you have 25,000 players that play different instruments, no conductor. And while I'm talking to you now, all my proteins are working even without me controlling them. The heart pumps blood, the muscles are working, the intestine is working, digesting the wonderful food of southern Thailand. The kidneys are working, everything is working. And I do very little, I speak a little bit, but the rest of the machine is still working without me even thinking about it. It's all under an automatic pilot. So the proteins are very complex structure, and because they are so complex, they're also very sensitive. They are sensitive to heat, they are sensitive to oxygen, they are sensitive to chemicals in the air, to pollution. They are very, very, very sensitive. They are sensitive to mutations, to changes in the DNA, and so on and so forth. So therefore, they are damaged all the time. I'll give you an example. For example, if you go to the butcher and you buy a piece of meat or fish, you have to come home and to put it immediately in the freezer or in the refrigerator for a short time, but mostly in the freezer, in order for it to be frozen. Because if you leave it on the desk, something will happen to it. Within a few hours, the meat will be gone. Let it be milk, let it be cheese, let it be anything that has proteins. Within a few hours at room temperature, it will be gone. It will stink, it will attain a different color, and you can throw it away. So proteins are very sensitive. So what's the difference between the proteins, the piece of meat that I buy in the butcher, to my meat? You know, we don't think in a cannibalistic way, but we have meat, right? You know, the muscle that moves my leg, actually when we take this piece of muscle from the cow, it's a steak. We call it a steak. Me too, you too, you have some steaks here. We don't call it steaks because we are not cannibals, but it's a steak. So what's the difference between my steak and the steak that we bought in the butcher and left it on the table? Why my steak doesn't get spoiled, despite the fact that it's living in a very high temperature? We don't notice it, but our temperature is 37 centigrade, right? 37 centigrade. We don't feel it. If it will be 37 centigrade outside, you will die. Well, you will not die, but you'll be sweat and you'll feel it. But our body temperature, we don't care. This is one of the magics of the body, that we don't care about the high temperature, like we don't care on the weight. Think, I'm weighing like 86 kilo, and I'm standing on my feet, and I don't feel the weight. But if somebody that weighs 85 kilo will stand on my foot, I will feel it, and it will be very painful. We learn to neutralize deleterious senses that are internal to us in order to conduct normal life, right? So what is the difference between the steak on the table and my steak? There is no difference. My steak gets spoiled and damaged and harmed at the same pace that the steak on the table. It's the same proteins, the same myosin, the same actin. In 8 hours, this is damaged heavily. But my steak are residing in a healthy living organism, while the steak on the table is not alive anymore. We have a machinery that takes the damaged proteins from the oxygen in the air, from the air pollutants, from the temperature, and takes them from the mutations and removes them away and synthesizes new ones instead of them to replace them. So we are basically very dynamic. If I look in the mirror this morning when I shaved, I think that it's the same face of yesterday, but no, it's not the same face of yesterday. Chemically, about 10% of my proteins were removed during the last 24 hours in an online process. And new ones, 10%, got synthesized to replace them. And that's how it's going all the time. Now, when you realize the number, there are a few questions that are coming up. If every few days I change all my proteins, let's say in a month, I replace all my proteins, then who am I? If now, what is today? The 31st of January, 2024? If on the 31st of December, 2023, I was made of completely different proteins, and now I'm made of new proteins, then who am I? Who am I? It's not a humoristic question. How is it that I changed all my hardware and my software is still with me? Memory, passion, imagination, talent, whatever. So if you buy a new computer and you change the old computer with a completely new identical one, you still have to take the software from the old one and move it to the new one. But in the body, we are changing the computer, the hardware, and nevertheless, we don't have to move the software. Basically, we have no way to move the software. We cannot move the software, it moves by itself. So this is one question. Another question is why we age. If I'm new, and I am new compared to last month, why we age at all, why we don't stay young. We are not going, I didn't mean to go into this subject, but what we discovered in the lab, let's now say, remember, I wanted to tell you what we did in the lab. We discovered a system that removes bad protein and replaces them with new ones. Okay, that's what we discovered. It's a cardinally, fundamentally important system because if it's aberrated, if it's non-functional, we get diseases. And we don't get minor diseases. For example, cancer. Cancer is driven by proteins that are called oncogene. Onco is tumor in Greece, like, you know, in the hospital, you have the Department of Oncology here, right, for cancer patients. Or we can get brain diseases like Alzheimer and Parkinson. These diseases are caused by proteins that are precipitate in the brain. They're aggregated, and they disturb the function of the brain. Normally, they are removed. They are generated all the time. Normally, they are removed, but if the system doesn't function properly, they accumulate. So many cancers are caused by aberrations in the system that we discovered, brain diseases, and as a result, there are many drugs that have been developed that are in the market. Of course, they are being used in Thailand as well. You know, when I visited Siriraj Hospital in Bangkok a few years ago, they took me proudly to show me how the drugs that were developed based on our discovery are being used in Thailand, but there is no wonder, they are used being all over the world. So it's a quality control system that if aberrated, as I said, many diseases evolve, and as a result, companies develop drugs, and so on and so forth. So of course, it gives you a little bit of a different view of medicine, because when I was a surgeon, you are operating on one patient at a time, okay? So we are operating 3 or 4 days a week, every day on 1, 2, 3 patients, depends on the length of the operation. But once, if you are lucky enough and you are in science, you can impact the lives of millions of people by developing drugs that impact the lives of millions of people. So I was lucky enough to be on that side of the fence. Okay, so that's for what we did. Now let's go to the subject of the talk, which is the revolution of personalized medicine. And you see, this is the city of Haifa, where I was born and work. I don't live there anymore. I live a little bit south to Haifa, but I lived there for many, many years. The medical school is here. This is the hospital. It's a hospital like your hospital. It's a 1,000-bed tertiary hospital with all the departments, transplantation, everything, a very good hospital. And the medical school is here. And the medical school belongs to a university, which is called the Technion, but the campus is not in the medical school. The campus is in the mountain. It's away. It's a very good university, one of the best in the world. It's mostly a technological university, engineering, computer sciences, and natural sciences, and the city is beautiful. You can see here beautiful gardens. These are the Baha'i gardens. They were built by the Baha'i people. Actually, in Delhi, there is a big temple of them. The Baha'i were in Iran, and they were persecuted by by the Muslims there. They are not Muslims. It's a very secretive sect, and they smuggled the body of the founder because they were chased by and persecuted, and they buried the founder underneath this beautiful golden dome here, which became a UNESCO heritage site, and the gardens are rolling all over. They built beautiful gardens. They are excellent gardeners, and it became a site of tourism. The city is really a beautiful city. Okay, so let's go to the matter of the lecture. So this is something that probably you all dream about. Well, you are all young, so you don't dream about it. I am the one that should dream about it. To remain young forever, beautiful forever, but that's not enough. We have more demands from life. What we want is also to be healthy forever. We don't want medical schools, we don't want doctors, we don't want anything. We want to be healthy forever. So the question is whether those aspirations are at all realistic. Can we? So about remaining young, well, time is moving, so we cannot remain young. We mean when we say that we want to remain young, we mean that we want to remain beautiful, that we don't want wrinkles, that we don't want white hair, that we don't want the sign of age. Then you can go to the barber shop to color your hair. You can go to the plastic surgeon to straighten you up a little bit. So forget about young, but the issue is diseases. Because if you think about diseases in the modern world, you know, most people, I mean, if they are living in developed country like Thailand that have good medical schools and good health care, most people are living to an old age, relatively. You know, the average age, I don't know how it's in Thailand, but in developed country, I believe that it's about the same. For men, it's about 81, 82. For women, it's about 84, 85. Japan is a little bit higher than anybody else. Underdeveloped countries like India, it's a little bit less, but that's the average in developed country. So most people make it, and they make it even healthy. They start to become sick, I would say, at the 6th, 7th decade of life. So until then, we need hospitals from time to time. We get flu, some vaccination, we break some bones when we are riding bikes and do all kinds of mischievous behavior and so on and so forth. But otherwise, we are doing okay. But once we are getting to the age of 60, 70, we start to get sick. And in the modern world, we get sick by 3 main diseases, 3 main killers: cancer, heart, and brain. These are the 3 big killers. Of course, if you have infectious diseases like corona, or you have malaria because you have swamps, this is a different issue. But in developed countries, the 3 main killers in the OECD countries are malignancies. This is #1 killer in Israel. Heart diseases is not only heart, it's all the vascular system, and brain. You know, Alzheimer and so on and so forth. But if we look at these diseases, it's very interesting. About 120 years ago, at the turn of the 19th century the turn of the 19th century to the 20th century, people didn't die of cancer, and they didn't die of heart attack, and they didn't die of brain diseases. And the reason is simple. They didn't get to the age to die of those diseases. The average age of death 120 years ago was about 45 to 55. That was the average age of death. We didn't have antibiotics. Every simple infection killed people. Women died during delivery. Therefore, families were big. You know, women went 15 times during their lifetime into pregnancy in order to have 3 or 4 kids. The kids died. Everybody died. The woman bled. We didn't have blood transfusion because we didn't know anything about blood types. We didn't know about A, B, O, and so on. This is also another Nobel Prize that went to Karl Landstetter from the Rockefeller University, just discovering we couldn't infuse blood. There was no X-ray. X-ray was invented in 1901, not to talk about CT scan and MRI, nothing. There was no vaccination, no vaccines. We got polio only in the 50s by Jonas Salk. I mean, there was nothing. So people just died. And all of a sudden, in the 20th century, mostly in the second half of the 20th century, we extended lifetime from 50, 45 to 85. We almost doubled it. Almost doubled it. This is a miracle. I mean, to double lifespan within such a short time. I remember myself, when there was polio and there was no vaccination, my parents were shivering. You know, they isolated me like in a cotton wool. They put me in a box so I will not get polio. I mean, that's I remember. So you can imagine that the development was immensely fast of science. Now, if we go back 4,000 years ago, I don't know how Thailand looked 4,000 years ago, but in our region, there were the Egyptians and the Greeks and the Romans, and the average lifetime was about 30 years. So they lived about, on the average, if you think about Queen Cleopatra or King Ramses or Archimedes, or Pythagoras, the famous Greek scientists, they lived 25, 30, 35 years. So it took almost 4,000 years to get from 35 to 50 or to 45, and then 1 century or less than a century to get from 45, 50 to 80, 85. What happened in 1 century that didn't happen in 4,000 years? Science and technology. It's all science and technology. Knowledge. Vaccination, antibiotics, imaging, surgery, hygiene, cholesterol, diet, sport, activity, all those together came to extend our lifetime. Now the question is, are we going to enjoy it further? In 100 years from now, are we going to live double, 160 years? Are we going to do the same thing in the current century? So people that are being born today, 2024, when they get to the end of the 21st century to 2100, are they going to live to the next century for another 50, 60 years? They are going to make it to 2150 or 60, those that are born today? Probably not. Probably not, but we don't know. We don't predict. Why not? Because biological systems have their own lifetime. I mean, there is so much that the system can live. If you think about the human body, it's the unbelievable magic that has ever been created. I'll bring you another example later on. I like to drive cars. I'm crazy about cars. So, think about a car. I have a German car, a very expensive German car. How much I drive it? Well, I'm traveling a lot in the world, so I'm not even seeing my car. So for the last 2 weeks, I'm traveling. But think about an average driver. You go to work and you come back from work, so you're driving 2 hours a day. Okay? 2 hours a day. Saturday, probably you don't drive. People rest 1 day a week. Sunday, doesn't matter. So you're driving a car about 12 hours a week. Okay? That's it. 15 hours a week. So you're driving a car about 50 hours a month. Okay? 50 hours a month. In a year, you are driving the car 600 hours. Okay? We double it by 12. After 10 years, at the most, we kick out the car. I mean, people don't hold car for more than 10 years. So 6,000 hours, that's it. So what is 6,000 hours? It's nothing. Think about lifetime. And the car during that time changed tires and went to the machine shop many times and changed this and changed that and many repairs. 6,000 hours is about, what is it? If we divide it by 24 hours a day, it's about 150 days. So a car drove, you buy the most expensive Mercedes, about half a year non-stop. So after half a year of non-stop driving, you kick out the car. A year, okay. Let's give it 20 years. Okay? We live 70, 80, 90 years non-stop. Every minute the heart pumps 50, 60, 70 times 50 milliliter of blood and distributes it to the circulation and then pumps the blood back and we exhale the air and the kidneys are working non-stop and the gastrointestinal tract and the eyes and the senses. Well, we sleep, but we have to do some renewal of metabolism, but otherwise 70 years non-stop compared to a car that is making half a year, the best car. I mean, this is like 150 times more or 200 times more. It's an unbelievable machine. But it comes to an end. At the end of the day, it succumbs. What it succumbs, the immune system starts to compromise. So old people die of infectious diseases, of flu in the winter. We tend to get all these diseases that I mentioned. All the diseases that are, the cancer, the vascular in the brain are all degenerative diseases that we don't get at the young age, but the system just doesn't cope. The quality control system, like our system, fails. It doesn't remove the oncogenes and the aggregated proteins. There is a kind of a biological collapse or phasing out of the surveillance quality of all the systems that are built in order to serve the quality control when we are young. So the prediction is that we are going to live about 110, 115 years, and then we are going to phase out. So we are still climbing up in developed countries. We are adding few weeks every year, and the prediction is that we are going to plateau at around 110, and there are already people that live 110 years, not too many, but there are people that live 110 years. Then people come and say, okay, but what about transplantation? If your kidney doesn't work, let's transplant kidneys. We shall generate, synthetic kidneys. Let's assume that there will be transplanted organ that we still, so we can transplant kidneys and lungs and maybe heart, but we cannot transplant brain, right? Not because first of all, it's technically impossible, but even if it will become technically possible, then if they will put a new brain in my head, then it won't be me anymore. I mean, we talked about it. So this is becoming like an oxymoron, to put a new brain in my body. So the prediction will be 115. Okay, so let's now, where medicine is going these days. Medicine is going these days in several directions. I shall not talk about all of it because it's a very complicated subject. On one hand, it's going to transplantation of what we call artificial metal-made or synthetic material-made organs. We can change joints, we can put joints that are made of titanium, we can change heart valves and so on. We are working very hard, not we, I mean the scientific community, is working very hard in order to generate transplanted organs from stem cells, because there is always a shortage. We cannot use the dead. They are very short. You cannot take, heart of somebody who died at the age of 80 and put it in a young person. It will not hold for too long. So we don't rely on transplanted organs from people, and we are developing either organs that are made of stem cells, or we are going to humanize pig. So this is the new trend. Pig turned out to be the animal that the organs of which are most fitting the people in terms of the size. The issue is, of course, rejection, because pig is a pig, a man is a man. There are companies in the United States and elsewhere that are trying to humanize the pig. Well, the pig is not going to become a medical student. We are not going to make a pig a human being. But humanizing a pig means to neutralize the immune system and to change it so that there will be no rejection. And that's possible also by genetic manipulation. And it's moving quite well, but the pigs have lots of viruses that are implanted already embedded in their DNA. So first you have to remove 60 or 50 viruses out, and then to neutralize the immune system, and then probably pigs are going to be source of transplanted organs. So in the other direction that medicine is going, beside artificial organs and animal or man organs, drugs. Drugs, we have gone to the pharmacy for many years, and drugs are going to be are going to be with us for a long time. So let's go to drugs, and I will focus in the rest of my talk only on drugs. So let's talk about drug discovery in our current time, what's going on. So the first revolution, and I'm concentrating only on the 20th century and the 21st century, because in the 19th century, there was no drug industry, there were no factories, and mostly, if we think about it, part of our success in science is because of development of communication. I mean, the fact that we have internet now, but not only internet, we have conferences, we have journals, electronic journals, we can read quickly. Whatever is published an hour ago, I can all read it now on my computer. So the communication made the exchange of knowledge very easy. In the 19th century, there were no telephones. People couldn't talk even to one another. People worked in a very isolated manner, not to say before the 19th century. So we shall concentrate only on the 20th and 21st century. And initially, there were incidental discovery. What is incidental? By chance. Nobody wanted to do it, but it came out. And one of the most important discoveries was that of antibiotics. Antibiotics was discovered by Alexander Fleming, a British microbiologist. And for those of you who know a little bit, but I will not go into technological jargon, you see here a dish. Well, this is a big dish on the slide, but normally it's like this. It's a 10-centimeter dish. It's called Petri dish, and the Petri dish has nutritious material on the bottom, which is transparent. You don't see it. You can look at it. It's like a jelly, which bacteria can grow on. And you see here bacterial smear. Now, Fleming was a microbiologist. You see he has many dishes here. You can see on his table there are stacks of dishes that are standing there. He smeared bacteria. Here you see the white smear are the bacteria. When you look in the microscope, we can see them one by one. But if we look with an unequipped eye, with a eyeball inspection, we can see the smear. So he left this dish by mistake on the table open. Typically, you have to close it because there are bacteria in the air, there are spores of fungi in the air. You keep it either closed or you even close it and put it in the refrigerator after the bacteria grew. So he left it on the table and went for the weekend. This is a true story. This is not, it was in the summer of 21. And he came back on Monday, and what he saw this one. So the air is contaminated with spores of fungi, and a spore fell, and it fell on a very nutritious media, so it grew. So it grew into a colony, and the colony is the spore was of a fungus that is called penicillium. So, okay, so that's normal. But then Fleming noted the following thing. He noted this halo here, you see, that the bacteria cannot grow all the way to the very border of the fungal colony. There is a halo there which is free of growth. And he said, something happened here. What happened here? The fungus secreted the material that deterred the growth of the bacteria. And he called this putative material, he didn't know that there is, but he guessed. He called it antibiotic. Anti against bios, life, right? Biology is the profession that we teach about life. And he was right. Took another almost 20 years to purify this material by Sir Howard Florey and Ernst Chain, and penicillin came to the world, and this was the first antibiotic. And it really changed the whole view of how medicine looks like, because now we have something to fight infections. Already in World War II, during the invasion of the Allies to Normandy, to defeat the Germans, they already used penicillin. And then other fungi like streptomyces have streptomycin. And people started to study, you see how it spreads like a fire. Once you have a principle, you can use the principle to amplify yourself. And people looked to many other species of fungi and found that they secrete different antibiotics. And the world has changed in a big way. Now we are making the antibiotics synthetically. We don't need the fungi to do it anymore. But nevertheless, it was a major breakthrough. But this was incidental. We cannot rely on coincidence in order to develop drug. What about cancer? What about other diseases? So then, it's not that people felt it's technology always allows progress. Technology and discoveries are going like cogwheel. If you have a technology, you can use the technology to discover something new. You have something new, then you have a new question, then you develop a technology, and then you jump. So if you look at Nobel Prizes, you'll see microscopy versus discovery, NMR, CAT scan versus progress in medicine. It's always going side by side. So what was the technology? The technology was what we call the what we call the high throughput screening. What is high throughput screening? It reflects the development in technology of like a wedding. What's a wedding? A wedding is that a bride marries a bridegroom, right? That's what's a wedding. In this case, the wedding was between the development of chemistry. Thailand had malaria, right? And the malaria, one of the most famous drugs that was developed by a Chinese woman called Yo-Yo Tu. She got the Nobel Prize for it. It's called artemisinin. Now she discovered it, she purified it from plants, from Chinese traditional medicine. But now we can make artemisinin artificially. It takes about almost 50 steps, but on the steps, there are lots of chemicals that are left over. We don't need them. They are intermediates. You go, in order to get from A to Z, we need to go via B, C, D, and E. So many synthetic organic compounds, have multi-steps procedure in order to make them. So there are, along the years, millions of compounds were generated that were left aside. You could gather them and classify them and make families, but there are millions of compounds. So this is the bridegroom. The bride came from biology, and that's modeling of diseases. I can model disease. I can model cancer, for example, or heart disease. I don't have to go to a man or to a woman that have cancer and to have the cancer as a model. I can take the one tumor from a man or a woman and grow it in the lab. And then I can send the tumor to all the labs in the world. So all over the world, we are using, for example, a tumor that was taken in the early 50s from a black woman in Johns Hopkins Hospital called Hila, right? Helen Lux, that's what's her name, of this black woman. And in the lab, we are growing HeLa cells. And not only in my lab, but in millions of labs worldwide, they grow HeLa cells. So I don't need the woman with the cancer in order to grow cancer in my lab. I can use cells. Now I can take the millions of compounds, and if I want an anti-cancer drug, I take HeLa cells or other cells, and I try them one by one by one by one until one compound will stop the tumor from growing. I don't know the mechanism. It's a brute force. Therefore, we call it brute force. But out of millions of compounds, one will fit into the mechanism of cancer and will knock it off. So that's by chance we do it, but at least it's systematic. So many drugs have been discovered this way. This is at least has a system. We are not relying on luck in order to develop it. We are not relying on luck. So I'll bring you one example for a drug that was developed, and these are statins. I will not go to anti-cancer. Statins are compounds that reduce cholesterol. And as you know, cholesterol is a kind of a poison. It's a lipid that grows and occludes the arteries that bring blood to the heart itself, to the coronary arteries. Once this will grow and occlude the whole lumen here, the whole space, the patient will die of heart attack or will get heart attack because there will be no blood flow to the heart, right? So that's the issue here. So statins that were discovered by Akira Endo, a Japanese pharmacist. Actually, we are talking pharmaceutical sciences. He worked in a company in Japan. He screened the library of thousands of natural compounds that came from Japanese plants. And what he screened it on cells that make cholesterol. The cells are secreting cholesterol. And he looked for a compound that will stop the secretion of cholesterol, and he found one. This is not a drug yet. The drug has to be tested on animals, on models, go to clinical trials, and so on. But at the end, Park Davis bought it's an American company, they bought the patent, they made the first statins, and statins are now being used by millions, billions of people. I don't know billions, but hundreds of millions of people worldwide. Hundreds of millions, it's a multi-billion-dollar selling drug all over the world that reduce the level of cholesterol for people that either got heart attack or have high level of cholesterol, and they are susceptible, they are in danger of getting heart attack. So this is a drug that came by screening. So this makes more sense rather than antibiotics that was discovered by chance. So again, this was discovered by development of science. So it's not that people said, okay, let's do it because coincidence is not good enough. But the development of science and the technologies allowed it to happen. Now, this also has a problem. What is the problem? That we are working on models. And the only model in medicine is called human being. We cannot, cells are not people, mice are not people. We need to try it on people. So, we are trying drugs on people, but the issue with people is that people are very different from one another. There are men and women, they are fat and thin, they are tall and low, they are they have different diets, they are living in different countries, exposed to different climate, and mostly they bring a different genetic cargo with them from their parents. So they are not two people on the entire planet that are identical to one another. Not two people on this planet that are identical to one another. Even not identical twins. They are different from one another. Once they are generated in the uterus, they are identical. But once they get out as babies, there are all kinds of epigenetic changes and they divert from one another. Therefore, people noted that if there is a disease, and initially we thought it's the same disease in two women or in two men, actually it's not the same disease. So let's take breast cancer, for example. If two women have breast cancer, all what I can tell about them, that they have a lump in the breast, but nothing else. The mechanism can be different, the treatment can be different, the response can be different. The only thing that I can tell that they have a lump in the breast. The same for men with prostate cancer, the same for somebody with Alzheimer's, the same for any disease. People are different from one another, and therefore the diseases behave differently in different people. And the secret came actually many years ago, and that's the beauty of science. Once you are making a discovery in science, you don't know where it's going to take you. So in the 50s, these two gentlemen, British gentlemen called Watson and Crick, discovered the DNA. And they realized that it's a genetic material. In 1963, they got the Nobel Prize. But nobody could predict what will happen. And it turns out that now this DNA is serving us in a big way in medicine. Actually, all modern medicine is based on this discovery. The DNA itself, we shall not go. You should study it here in the university. Is made of a double helix, and it can replicate itself, and this is the model. This is Watson, this is Crick. Crick died, meanwhile, Watson is still alive. And the modern medicine is going to be based on the DNA. And you'll see, you look at the Time magazine, you don't need to go to the library to read very sophisticated journals. You see that the future drugs, you see here is kind of Adam and Eve, the modern Adam and Eve, they are surrounded by the double helix of the DNA. And they say the drugs of the future, amazing new medicines, will be based on DNA. Okay? So what's the issue here? What is it? DNA, drugs, and so on? What's the issue? The issue is simple. The issue is that until now, medicine was what I called pajama type of a medicine, or one size fits all. Why I call it pajama? Because pajama is something that we don't put much care about it. If you go to buy a pajama, all what you want that it will warm you in the winter, maybe not in Hat Yai because it's warm here, but in the cold parts of the world. And then there are three sizes, small, medium, and large, and in between you don't care. There is the rubber band, and even these big trousers of the pajama will fit this nice, thin man. We are moving from pajama type of medicine that one size fits all, and what is in medicine? If a woman have a breast cancer, what we do typically, if she has no metastasis and so on, we cut the breast, give chemotherapy, give radiotherapy, jump on her with shooting her with a cannon, with an awful cannon, in order to kill a little fly. So then the same treatment for everybody. So we are going away from it now. We are going away from it, and we are moving to tailor-made medicine that will be tailored to the patient. And what does it mean? It means exactly what I told you, that we are people. Sorry for that. That we are people. We have here a group of people. Let's say one day in your hospital, you have patients, women that are diagnosed with breast cancer, or over a week or 2 weeks, doesn't matter. And they have colors, but we don't see the colors. We were blind. Now we are able to see it. What are the colors? In this case, it's green, blue, and orange. What does the color mean? The color means that if we start the standard treatment for any disease, doesn't matter man or woman, after a few years, what we see is that some of them died. The blue and the orange died, but we couldn't see the color, so we didn't know who is going to die. And the green one survived. How? By chance at that time. Now we are able to tell more exactly what will happen, because we can say now by sequencing the DNA that these people have a more adverse or aggressive mutation than these people. By sequencing the DNA. Now we can read the code of the disease. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean by that, again, let's go to the car. Now we are going second time to the car. There is a disease and there is a reason for the disease. And the two of them are very different from one another. Let's say in the car. And again, Hat Yai is not a good example, but if you live in Minnesota or in Boston or in Greenland, in the winter, it might happen that you cannot turn on your car. Maybe even in Hat Yai, you cannot turn on your car. You come in the morning, you want to go to the university, you cannot turn the car on. So the name of the disease is, I cannot turn the car. But the reason behind can be multiple. It can be that you forgot the lights and the battery is empty. It can be that you didn't notice that you don't have gas. You drove and there is no gas, so you cannot turn the car. It can be that the oil, you rode a bumpy road and the oil tank got a hit and the oil drained and the barrels are stuck in the cylinders. You cannot turn the car because there is no oil. It can be that the sparks are, got wet from the rain because you have rusted the cover of the engine. It can be anything. And if you won't treat the car with the right reason, it's still not turned on. So let's say that the battery is empty and you put gas in the tank, the car will not move because the battery is empty. So you always need to treat the disease with the appropriate, and that's what we didn't know. And now we know what, and I'll give you an example. Breast cancer, again, taken from the Time magazine, it doesn't matter. So you have two women here. What happens if a woman complains of a lump in the breast? She goes to the doctor. What the doctor is doing, the doctor will take a biopsy, put a needle in, take a biopsy and send it to the pathologist. So this is woman A and this is woman B. Okay, you already can tell that the tumor here is very different from the tumor here, right? So here it's an island, here it's multiple islands, but that's not the issue. You see that the tumor here is brown and here not. Now the brown is artificial. It's something that the pathologist did. The pathologist used an antibody in order to stain the two tumors. The treatment was the same. So he put the same stain, the same antibody on the two tumors. But this one didn't catch the stain, and this one catch the stain. Now the antibody is against a mutated estrogen receptor. Estrogen is one of the hormones of the female, and this woman has a mutation in the estrogen receptor, and the antibody can tell us that her estrogen receptor is mutated. But this woman has a normal estrogen receptor. The reason for this woman cancer is something else. This woman can be treated with tamoxifen, because tamoxifen will counteract the activity, the cancerous activity of the mutated estrogen receptor. If I shall treat this woman with tamoxifen, nothing will happen. Actually, something will happen. We shall waste money, and she will continue to deteriorate. It's like putting gas in a car that doesn't have a battery. So what? Nothing will happen. So this woman will benefit from tamoxifen, and this woman will not. But this woman that will not benefit from tamoxifen can benefit from something else. If she has a mutation in the EGF receptor, in the HER2 receptor, then she can be treated with Herceptin. So what we are going to do, we are screening the cancer for mutations, and we fit the drug into the mutation. That is personalized medicine. Okay, so now we know that there are 20 different breast cancers, 20 different, and each should get a different treatment. Of course, I can cut the breast away and use chemotherapy and radiotherapy, but that's really, I mean, very cruel. If I can do something that is much gentler, much more efficient, with less side effects, it's much smarter than behave like in a butchery. So that's the idea of personalized medicine. I fit the treatment to the disease. And the same thing can also help us when we are in the hospital, and people in the hospital, they know that many drugs have side effects. It's called adverse drug reaction. You know, penicillin can cause you a rash or even an anaphylactic shock. So the ADRs are also genetic. They are embedded in the DNA. So now we can screen also for adverse drug reaction and find out and prevent the patient from taking the wrong drug, because the patient can die from the drug. We mean good by treating the patient, but we can kill the patient. And think about it, because fatal, deadly adverse drug reaction are about 4th to 6th leading cause of death in US hospitals. So people that die in the hospital, 25%, between 15 to 25% are dying because drug reaction. And now we can tackle it. So there are many issues with personalized medicine, and again, we go back to the secret, and the secret is, of course, you know, fat and thin, tall and low, women and men, diet, genetics, and so on. Each individual, the diseases are individual. Now, they are not individual in the sense that because in Thailand there are, how many people live in Thailand? 100 million? 80? They are not, if these people will get sick, there will not be 80 million different cancers. But there will be many more than one for each type. So as I said, there will be 20 breast cancer, and 20 prostate cancer, and 20 Alzheimer, and so on. And within the group, we'll have to find out the mechanism. So what we are doing genome atlas. We are sequencing the genome of 5,000-10,000 women with breast cancer, and we are generating a map. How many reasons there are for breast cancer? And the same for every disease. It's a huge project that is running worldwide, in which people are screening in a coordinated way thousands of patients with the same so-called disease, in order to see how many different subtypes there are for each disease, and then they will fit the drug. So that's the whole idea behind it. Now let me go to the last part of my talk, but let me drink a little bit of water before. And there are two issues here. It looks nice on the slides and in the lecture, but it's a little bit more complicated. And I will not go to all this. I will go only to the last two items. End of the blockbuster drug era. Because until now, for breast cancer, there was one drug, two drugs. Now there are going to be 20. Now you can imagine that companies have to develop the 20 drugs, and it costs a lot of money. But the market slice of each drug will be much smaller than the blockbuster drug, right? Because if, let's say that in Thailand there are, I don't know, 1 million women that every year suspected of breast cancer, and these 2 million women got 1 or 2 drugs, now they will get 20 drugs. So each drug will be given to 50,000 women rather than to 1 million. So the companies will make much less money. But companies are commercial companies, they are private. So what they are going to do? Raise the price. What does it mean, raising the price? Drugs are not accessible to people. That's what it means, unless you are very rich. Even now you have to be rich to get very good treatment. So that's the meaning of it. Because the blockbuster era that one drug can control all the spectrum of the diseases is gone. But the other issue is more problematic, and that's bioethics. We don't think when we are in science and technology, we're in the lab, we don't think that behind the disease, there is a human being. And the human being has children, has family, and once the disease comes, the whole world turns upside down, and things become very complicated. So what about bioethics? Bioethics means that a very sensitive piece of information is going to be now available, I wouldn't say to the public, but available. So what will happen is the following, because when patients will now come to the hospital, even now, their DNA will be sequenced. And the DNA will discover things that you may not think about, because I don't know what, now I feel healthy, but I don't know whether my DNA, whether there are mutations that in 5 years will make me sick. So I always bring one example that if I feel bad, let's now that I feel bad, I have a chest pain, I go to the nearby hospital of Songkla Medical School, and I tell the doctor that I have a chest pain, and the doctor takes blood and go send it to the test, and he comes after a few hours and he say, hey, Aaron, I'm happy to tell you that you don't have heart attack, but you have something else. Something else. We sequence all your DNA, and it turns out that you have a gene that carries susceptibility to Alzheimer's disease. And there is such a gene. They sequence all the DNA, they throw it into the machine can, in few hours, get all the information, and they tell me that I have APO4E. APO4E doesn't matter. It's a gene that carries high susceptibility for Alzheimer's. Now, what do you do with this information? Okay, I don't have heart attack, I walk happy, so I go home. Do I tell my wife that I have, maybe in 5 years, I will not know her anymore? Do I tell my employer that may throw me out? Do I tell the insurance company that will revoke my policy? And what do I tell my children? Because they may carry the gene as well. So you see, things get even such information that until now we didn't have access to, and I didn't mean even to do it, but it will come out. The issue is also a legal issue, to whom belongs the information. And should countries say, no, you shouldn't tell Aaron that he has a gene unless there is something to do with it. If there is no drug, why to tell me? But the information is mine. So even the legal issue is awfully complicated. And I want to end up, of course, with our genetic privacy. Maybe I have a psychiatric disease. Maybe before I go to get a position in Songkla University, the president will come and tell me, go to the doctor, do a DNA sequence, and come back and show it to me, to tell me that you are not, psyche, that in few years you are not going to get crazy and shoot everybody on the campus. I mean, things like that. This is not imagination. It can happen because we are going to identify also patterns of behavior with genes, because at the end, behavior is also genes, isn't it? It's not wind. It's not everything is chemistry at the very end. So the genetic privacy is, we may want to keep it for ourselves, but not necessarily we shall be able to. And there will be a leak. People will, like they hack computers, they will hack the information. And then there will be ransom. They will call me and say, Aaron, we have now access to your DNA because we penetrated the hospital computer, and if you don't pay us $100,000, we shall put it on the network. I mean, everything can happen. And I think that the last slide is of this beautiful woman that many men love, and her name is Angelina Jolie. And Angelina Jolie, about 10 years ago, came with the information that she's going to take off her breast. And then a year later, she said, I'm going to take also my ovaries. Why? Because her mother died of breast cancer, and her aunt, the sister of the mother, died of ovarian cancer. And the two cancers are linked to one another by one gene that is called BRCA1, BRCA1, breast cancer number 1. So women that have a mutation in this gene carry high susceptibility to develop either breast cancer or ovarian cancer or both. So she decided to remove a ticking bomb from her body, because if you don't have breast and you don't have ovaries, you don't develop cancer. And to reduce the risk, and that's what she did. She did a great service to women by alerting them to that they should look, if they have breast cancer, to family story. Maybe it's going on in the family. But again, Angelina Jolie faces the same very problem that any simple woman faces. For example, what to tell the children. I mean, the children are children. So what to do about it? It's still a kind of an open question, but it's not the future, it's the present, I can tell you. This is not, my talk was not about imaginary medicine. It was on an ongoing medicine. And we'll have to find a solution for that. For example, one solution, well, the surgery is a little bit of a cruel solution, will be gene editing. There are two women that got the Nobel Prize in 2020, Jennifer Doudna and Emmanuel Charpentier, an American and a French German. And they know how to correct genes, where they develop technology, how to correct gene by CRISPR-Cas. So maybe we shall be able to correct the genes, and it's already ongoing effort. What tells you that, again, technology and medicine and discoveries are going hand by hand. We have a question, what to do with a gene, and now we have also a solution that is still being cooked, but it will be available in few years. So what I wanted to do in this talk, give you a little bit of what's going on in medicine. I hope it was not too complicated. I tried to make it as simple as I could, though English is not my mother language. I speak a different language, but you know, in being in science, in international science, you need English. There is no other way. And I wish you all the best in wherever the road is going to take you. Thank you very much.
I think it was a brilliant talk for us today. So could you have a big round of applause for him again? Thank you very much. I think it's very great time that we have a Nobel Laureate stand in front of us today. So it is the next section for us. It is a Q&A section, and we have 45 minutes, maybe, for the question. And we encourage you to have a question for him. You can ask him directly by raising your hand. I think you can ask either Thai or English language. We have an assistant for you. So let's get started with the first question. You want to be the first one? Okay. Can we have a microphone for Ajahn?
It's such a wonderful talk, Aaron. My question is, you are talking about personalized medicine. And my question is, as we know that our cells are heterogeneity and not homogeneous. So from those heterogeneity, how can we deal with the treatment? Even we have personalized medicine, but personalized medicine may be focused just only the one that is more homogeneity than heterogeneity. Are we going to move to the cocktail drug or something that more than one drug at one time?
Yeah, let me answer it. We know, let's talk about cancer, for example. Let's say that we have two genes of one oncogene, P53, for example, which is a tumor suppressor. We know that if one is mutated, it's enough. So it has to do also with the dominance and recessiveness. I didn't want to go really into complicated jargon, but it has to do whether the mutation is dominant, whether you need one copy, or whether you need two copies. From time to time, the mother and father bring two copies. Each is mutated in a different site, but nevertheless, because the two of them are inactive, then there is no activity. So it really depends on the specific mutation, whether it's dominant, whether you bring it from the two parents, and so on and so forth. But you are right, we are very diverse in our composition. But therefore, therefore the technology of sequencing is now very easy. Initially, it took the first genome to sequence was almost $1 billion, and it took like 8 years. Now to sequence a genome takes $2,000. It's still expensive, and it takes an hour. And the information, so it's going to be like a benchtop technology. Doctors will have it in every office. So, and the interpretation will come by software, so the doctor doesn't have to bother about it. And not only the interpretation of the mutation, but also what it means and what should be done, and whether there is something to be done. So it will be dependent on every single mutation. But we start to get a map.
But again, from those mutations, even one genetic defect, and then it translates to protein, what about sometimes even the same sequence or some genetic defects, and then they translate to protein, and the protein have some problems, some diseases, and those coming from, from different cells in our body, right? Different cells, and those cells, for example, one piece of tissue contains several more.
You're right. It complicates things. Another thing that complicates the issue, especially for cancer. Cancer is a very tricky disease. You start with one drug, and the cells develop under your eyes a new mutation because the cell tried to escape the drug. So in order to escape the drug, it will go to another gene and develop another mutation. Therefore, for cancer, we believe that we shall never be able to treat any cancer with one drug. Actually, there are now, I think, 1 or 2 cancers that are treated with 1 or 2 drugs. All the rest need a battery in order to suppress it from all directions. This is another complication. You are right. Of course, I was very superficial in my talk because I couldn't, delve into the depths of any problems that are waiting for us. But nevertheless, the fact that we are now able to diagnose whether it's the battery or the oil or the gas or the spark is a huge leap jump. It's a huge leap jump compared to beforehand that we were blind. We were completely blind to these people. Actually, what happened before, I remember it myself as a young medical student and even as a young doctor. A woman came with a breast cancer, okay? Also, the imaging was very bad. We couldn't find whether she has already metastases. Now we have very good antibodies. Imaging is now much more advanced, but forget about it. So the woman said, if she grasped the idea that she has cancer, many people are very, very difficult for them to grasp the idea. She said, "Doctor, tell me, am I going to make it? Am I going to be with my family in a year or 2 or 3? I'm going to make it." So the doctor said to her, "You have 50%, or 10%, or no percent, nothing, you are going to die. Let's say imaginary conversation, or 90%, you will be okay." So she asked the doctor, "What does it mean, percent? My name is Roberta Biderman, and I live in street in Sukhumvit in Bangkok. And I have a child by the name of Robert, and I have a name. What is a chance? What is a chance?" So the doctor told her, "I'm 70 years old. I've been in this office for about 40 years. I've seen 2,000 like you, and out of the 2,000, 1,000 are buried already in the cemetery, and 1,000 are alive. That's statistics. Or 20, it doesn't matter, whatever." And then she said again, "But I have a name. What are my chances?" And the doctor said, "I'm blind. I cannot see the colors of the brown, of the orange, blue, and green." Now you can tell her almost exactly that people that have this mutation and take this drug have so much really, we are much more accurate about prediction and about our ability to treat because we know the mechanism. It's like if you have no gas in the car, it will cost you few bahts to go to the gas station and to ask a friend to fill it for you, and you are on the way. But if, by the way, you didn't notice that there is no oil and the barrels are stuck and you have to change the whole engine, that will cost you 100,000 baht, then you are in a problem. So now, by knowing the reason of the disease, we are in a much better position not only to develop a drug, but also to predict the course of the disease. Whether she needs an operation, she doesn't need, whether, we are in a much, much better shape now. But you are right, the issue of diversity and heterozygosity is still on top of us.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for the first kickstart question, Professor Thirapon, and thank you for your answer. I think it's time for the second question, please. Student, please.
But I need you to come down, because during my military service, I lost part of my hearing because of the shells and bombs and I don't know what.
Hello, Professor Ciechanover, and first of all, I would like to introduce myself first. I am a pharmacy student and currently on the 3rd year. And while I am studying at the faculty, I have heard 3 words: targeted therapy, personalized medicine, and precision medicine. I am wondering that, are they the same? And if they are not the same, what are the differences?
Personalized and precise?
Personalized and precision.
And?
Precision medicine. Precision
what is the
medicine.
second one?
Precision medicine.
Yeah, precision. It's the same. Actually, the term precision, it's called, I'm sorry for not hearing, so I'll ask the other people that ask questions to come even closer. Or I will get down to the hall. Yeah, it's the same name. Actually, they are what we call, I think that I showed it. We can go back, maybe. Let me just go back for a minute. Can you? I think I have a slide on that. No, I don't have a slide, but, 1 minute? No. It is called, the 4 P's medicine. 4P, the letter P. Personalized and precise is one. Then it is also called predictive, because if I take my DNA now, I can predict the future. So this is the second P. So precise and personalized and precision is under 1P, because it's more precise and it's personal. So that's identical. Then it's preventive, because we might be able to prevent disease if we know the mutation. Then it is predictive, because we can predict the disease and then prevent it. And the last part is, I refer to it very briefly, but is, in my opinion, the most interesting and maybe the most exciting, and it's called participatory. So precision, precise, 1, predictive, we can predict, preventive, and participatory. It means that the patient takes part, participates in the decision-making process. Why the patient participates? Because the decisions now are going to be much more complicated. I remember when I was a medical student, we already joked about it, Uwe, the doctor was God. You came to the doctor and you didn't dare to ask anything. And the doctor told you, if you tried to say something, the doctor told you, do what I tell you to do. Trust me, I'm your doctor. I'm God. Nowadays, because of the huge source of information, internet, encyclopedias, people are reading, they are grouped together. Breast cancer patients, they are grouped and they don't have to be in Thailand. Some of them are in Bangkok, some of them are in Tokyo, some of them are in New York, and they can talk to one another, they can do WhatsApp, they can do Zoom, they can do whatever they want. The doctor takes now a side position. The doctor is a consultant, right? I can tell you my experience. If you want to go to another doctor, go to another doctor, do what you want. I can consult you out of my experience. I am not telling you what to do. The doctor position changed in a big, and therefore the patient has to decide whether he takes the advice, whether he wants another one. Think about taking your breast away. I mean, this is like, wow, what is it? I mean, think about Angelina Jolie. I mean, this is, you take the symbol of womanhood and cut it away like in the butcher. I mean, this is something that the woman has to decide for herself. She wants to consult not another doctor. She may want to consult 25 doctors. She may want to go to America to the best cancer clinic to see whether this is the last word and whether there is a new drug that is coming before she's mutilating herself. So, I mean, therefore, and it has to do also with genetics of children, with abortions, what the children have. So the issue of participation, which is also P, remember, is extremely important. Medicine is really changing that the patient is taking a larger and a larger part in the decision-making process about his or her own fate. So yes, I'm sorry for the long answer. Precise and personalized is the same, but it's 1P out of 4. Remember, precise, personalized, 1P, predictive, preventive, participatory.
Thank you so much, Professor.
Thank you very much for your answer and your question. We're going to test you about the 4P later. Please remember. And another question from... Okay, please.
Come close and shout.
Hello. Okay. As we know that the personalized medicine is the breakthrough innovative, but Thailand is the developing country. I want to know about your opinion that can the personalized medicine can be cheaper and how? Thank you for thank you in advance.
What was the question about the development of personalized medicine?
Because a lot of people in Thailand, they don't have a lot of money to have the personalized medicine. Thank you.
I got it. Yeah, this question is a very important one, and I thank you very much for asking it, because it pertains to medicine in general, but not only to medicine. Think about education. If you are rich, you can teach your children English, right? You can take them private, you can take them all over the world. You can take Thai Airways, right? And fly to Paris and fly to New York, show them the world. You can take a pianist and tell them and show them and teach them how to play. Money is money, right? What we can do. So there is already built-in inequality in society. Rich people eat better, or maybe they eat worse because they eat a lot of junk food. But there is built-in inequality. Now, medicine is a very special profession because we believe that people deserve at least basic, decent, humane medical help. We should not deprive medicine from anybody. But the question is what level of medicine? How sophisticated? Because there is no country in the world, not even the richest, that can provide everything for everybody. You are limited. You are not only limited by money, you are limited by area. Think in Hat Yai, the medicine is not as good, you should admit it, and I can get confirmation from the president and from the dean of the medical school. The hospital and the medicine is not as good as in Bangkok. And Bangkok is not as good as London. We should admit it. Let's be truthful to ourselves. Let's don't fool ourselves. But we try to do the best, like vaccination, food, nutrition, vitamins for kids. We try to, at least at the base will be the same, but there will always be, something that you cannot get either in your own country or because you don't have money or because of any other reason. Now, personalized medicine, unfortunately, is going to be even more expensive. Why? I said, because we are going to slice the cake to more pieces. If until now, 1 million women with breast cancer in Thailand took one drug, now the same million people will take 20 drugs. So each drug will be taken only by 50,000 women, but the drug costs to develop the same, costs the same $1 billion. So the companies are making less, so they will raise the prices. Imaging now, when I grew up, there was only one type of imaging, X-ray, X-ray. Now there is CAT scan, MRI, functional MRI, invasive MRI. It costs tons of money. It costs tons of money. So for me, as a doctor, it's very disturbing that people need to buy health and they cannot do it because they don't have money. Health is something very fundamental. It's like bread. Like we cannot tolerate homeless, but there are homeless in Thailand, right? You see people living in the street. I cannot tolerate homeless. That people, all what they have is a dirty shirt that doesn't protect them from the rain because they live in the corner of Sukhumvit and Swan 9 in Bangkok, underneath the Nana station of the BTS. So that's it. Whether we accept it or not, each country is also different in how much welfare it can give the people and protect them. But to answer your question briefly, personalized medicine is going to be more expensive, period. Unfortunately, for people who will not be able to afford it. We don't think about it, we don't think about economy, because in the lab I develop now a drug for cancer, which is going to be very personal because we know the mechanism, and so on. I will make the drug available, but the company who will make it, I am not a manufacturer, I'm not a pharma company. At the end, somebody will have to make it in millions of doses. That's, one thing you can argue, which is a place to think, is politics. Your government in Thailand, not only in Thailand, I bring Thailand because I love the country and I come here, gives you education, right? Elementary school, opens university for you. You have to pay in the university, but nevertheless it's subsidized. They make roads, right? In Thailand, the government make roads. They have a military to protect you. Luckily, Thailand has been peaceful for so many years, one of the few countries in the world that remain peaceful for so long. The government is responsible. You pay taxes, and the government takes the taxes and give you something in return. Gives you roads, give you education, give you hospitals, give you the government this. But the government somehow forgot about drugs. So you go to the hospital, so the government pays the salary of the doctor and the salary of the nurse, but it doesn't pay for the drug because the company makes the drug, not the government. The government has to pay for the drug as much as the company charges the government. It's not in the hands of the government. So maybe something to think about, that the government should subsidize or incentivize companies to drop prices and to work on lower earnings so drugs will be more accessible even to poor people that cannot afford it. It's strange in my eyes that the government is responsible for the army, but is not responsible for the drug, but it is responsible for the hospital and for the doctor's salary. There is something wrong here. The doctor has hands, but the doctor cannot give you drug if he doesn't have the drug. But if the drug costs $1 million, the doctor will never be able to give it to you. So what do we need the doctor for? So you see, there is something strange and wrong in this, how the system, the ecosystem, is built from. But all in all, you are right. Unfortunately, especially for medicine, there is a severe inequality, and the gap is probably going to grow. Was a very long answer to a very short, good question.
Thank you for your opinion.
Thank you very much for your answer. And we have the next one waiting for you.
Okay, so thank you. It's my honor to be here and ask you a question in person. So I'm personally interested in liquid biopsy, such as nanocellular vesicles or cell-free DNA. So given your expertise, you may likely familiar with this topic. to a certain degree. Could you please give us some of your thoughts or insights regarding this topic in terms of how far can we implement this in clinical practices?
So what was the question? I'm sorry that I didn't catch it. What was it? Sorry for that.
So I personally interested in liquid biopsy, such
In
as
what? Interested in what?
liquid biopsy.
Oh, liquid biopsies.
Liquid
Okay.
biopsy. Yeah.
So people understand what is a liquid biopsy? Instead of taking, piece of the tumor, we can find markers in the blood. Can be DNA that was shed from the tumor, can be circulating tumor cells that shed from the tumor, just to explain to the public what is liquid biopsies. Yes?
Yes, and also given your expertise, I'm very sure that you are familiar with this topic to a certain degree. So I'm just would like to ask you to give us some of your thoughts and insights regarding how far can we implement this into the clinical practices.
Yeah, I'm not sure that I got it all, but let me try to answer it. The main thing in medicine now are biomarkers, one of the big issues. First of all, we want to avoid biopsies, real biopsies, but that's not the issue. Now under guidance of imaging, we can do a lot. But the other issue is screening of population. Because liquid biopsy is nothing. Everybody go to the clinic, you take a blood, and you can screen it for 100 tumors, I don't know what. And the issue is one, and we are developing very much so. We are well advanced in finding biomarkers. Liquid biopsy is the route, it's the tool, but the disease should have a mirror in the blood. That's what we want. And it's an issue of sensitivity, of course, because if it's very little, it's less than 10 to the 9 or whatever, we cannot find it, though it's there. The issue is always an insurance issue here, an economic issue. It has nothing to do, or very little to do with the, because let's say that I go in the streets of Bangkok and I collect blood from 10,000, 20,000 people of different ages. And for some of them, I find markers of some disease, let's say lung cancer. Lung cancer is an issue because of smokers and so on and so forth. So the issue is, what do I do with these people? Do I take them? None of them complained. I collected them in the street. I found them in the BTS, okay? Somewhere in the underground. So what do I do with these people? I take all of them to the hospital now to further analysis. I operate on them, I irradiate them, I take real biopsies, I take another one. Or do I leave them alone? And what the insurance will say. Until now, I can tell you that the insurance companies wanted me not to do nothing. Do nothing. Let them just stay there. Some of them are not insured, so they will die. Who cares? Depends on the country. So the insurance companies are say, for those that are not insured, they don't pay us, why should we take care of them? Some of them are old enough, or the cancer is very chronic, so they will die with the disease rather than from the disease. So prostate cancer, for example. Okay, let's say that I'm taking now a PSA for me. Okay, it's another biomarker for prostate cancer for men. It's an enzyme called PSA. Let's say that they take a PSA and they find that I have a high PSA. The doctor will tell me, hey, Aaron, it's like 3 nanogram per milliliter. You're already 76. Your life expectancy is whatever. Just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. So the issue is always whether the insurance companies, it's not only, it's consideration of both medical consideration and coverage, because at the end of the day, the insurance company, let it be national or private, will have to interfere. First of all, they have to cover it. They have to cover the biopsy. Then they have to cover the treatment. They may prefer, at the end, you find it very cruel, that 1 out of the patient will develop cancer and they will have to pay $50,000 for the operation, and then to deal with 50 people that they don't know what to do with. Some of them will need half treatment, some of them will need this, some of them will need this. So the issue is, on one hand, medical. What to do if you have some finding, like what to do if I do my DNA sequence now and I find mutated P53. And then it's the issue, let's say that I can afford to do whatever I want. I have enough money, okay? And then it's a public issue, how many people are covered, what type of coverage there is, what to do with the coverage, how to progress with the diagnosis of something that you do screen. There is a huge discussion now in the United States. I can give you an example, which is going now in Israel, whether to do low irradiation lung X-ray for heavy smokers. So you are a heavy smoker, you don't have cancer, you don't have anything, but you have very high chance of cancer. So the issue is, should we take all the heavy smokers and offer them, you cannot force anybody, a low irradiation X-ray in order to find whether they have a tumor that we can still operate, because once they will complain, it will be too late. And then again, it's the issue of how much it costs to screen. You know how many heavy smokers there are? I mean, it's unlimited. To screen just all of them. And then some of them will not have a tumor. You will see something, but it's not a tumor. So you have to take them to the hospital to do the biopsy, to give the biopsy to the pathologist. This is $1,000 each piece, if not more, depends on the country. So you see, it's a very balanced issue, and unfortunately, we don't have a solution to that yet. I hope I did answer it as much as I could understand it.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes.
I'm for sure that he get it. Thank you very much for your answer. Are there any questions? Okay, let's. Could you wait later? Okay.
Come down. I will not bite you.
Hello. Okay. First of all, thank you very much for your wonderful talk today. I found particularly inspirational about your talk today. So as we know, you won the Nobel Prize about ubiquitin, right? So could you please explain about how this discovery led to the Nobel Prize, please? Thank you.
How we discovered ubiquitin?
Yes. Is this wrong?
Okay.
In short.
So I'll tell you a little bit the background. Why do I have to be on this podium? I can go down, no? Okay, so the story was as following. You can sit here, you don't have to sit on a chair. So the story was as following. I was a surgeon, and then there were two things that happened. One is that I realized that I'm going to do the same thing, or more or less, for the next 40 years, which really, sent a shiver in my spine. I mean, to do the same thing every morning, to operate and operate and operate on the same patient, and the families are complaining all the time. If this operation is successful, they thank God. If the operation is a failure, they kill the doctor. That's how it goes. So I decided that I'm a little bit tired of the families and all the complaints. But then the serious part is that when patients are coming to the hospital, it's in most cases too late. Unless you are involved in road accident and you break your leg or something like that. But if you're coming with the cancer is already developed in the abdomen, ovarian. The cancer has been there for many years. It's too late. You can rescue the patient if you take the breast. You can rescue, but the disease has been there for a long time. If you come with Alzheimer, it means that part of the brain is already gone. You cannot go back. So I was very naive, and I said that if I go to do research, I may be able to discover why diseases start at the beginning, why a healthy person started, how it starts. And it's very interesting because I was influenced from an experiment that the Americans did during the Korea War. Thailand was spared during the Korea War. It was involved a little bit during World War II with the Japanese. You remember the Kwai River, which is very nice. You go in Thailand to see the Kwai River. I remember as a kid the wonderful movie, A Bridge Over the Kwai River. But during the Korean War in the early 50s, the Americans took the soldiers that died, that were killed in the battlefield, and they operated on them. They did what we call a PM, post-mortem operation, and they found that the heart is already sick, that the arteries already have the beginning of the cholesterol that I showed you, and these young people at the age of 18, in 30 years, they will die of heart attack. It will take 30, 40 years until the coronary artery will be completely occluded with cholesterol, and they'll get a heart attack. So I was interested exactly in that stage, what happens at the very beginning that people start to develop. Now, why it was naive? Very naive thinking, I would say now even a stupid one, because when you go to the laboratory, you're not curing cancer, people are asking me. You're working on something that is, a nitty-gritty, a corner of science. I was lucky enough that and I come to your question in a minute, that what we discovered later on became very big. So now I can really understand the beginning of some diseases, not all of them, far away, very few. But this happened to me because it's a miracle. It's a statistics of 1 to 10 million. Because typically you're studying something very small and it remains small, and you are, you're moving in your research on a very narrow path. And then I come to your question, how we discovered ubiquitin. Remember, I'm coming from a very small country. We are 9 million people, less than half Bangkok. And we were very much afraid that the Americans will hit us, the big sharks. So we decided to go the opposite direction. In that time when I started my studies in science, everybody was working on DNA and RNA and proteins, how proteins are made. We decided to work on how proteins are destroyed, and nobody cared about it. This was a neglected field. Actually, people told me, Aaron, if you work on this subject, you are going to die scientifically. Basically, you're going to walk slowly into the scientific cemetery. That's going to be your end. So I said, okay, but it will be an interesting end. And so, because nobody cared about it, because people thought the destruction of proteins happens in the stomach, even if you eat the best Thai food, it will take 2 minutes to go via your mouth. You say, wow, it's wonderful, and then it will go and digest it. So the whole story is 1 minute. Think about if you are eating a meal for 1 hour, think about how many joyful minutes you have during the 1 hour. 2, 3, 4, maybe, I'm not sure. So that's it. So nobody cared about protein, how they are destroyed. Because it occurs in the stomach, and it's not interesting. And we had some thought that indeed it's interesting. I don't want to go into all the technicalities. We had a big discussion. We drew a map of what can be there, what cannot be there. And then we started to work, and we discovered ubiquitin as part of the story. So ubiquitin is a protein, if you mentioned it, that we discovered, that once it's attached to another protein, it kills it. So the Nobel Committee gave it a very funny name. They called it the kiss of death. So typically you imagine that kisses don't belong to death, but that's how they called it. When they announced the Nobel Prize, and I looked at the announcement, they said these people discovered the kiss of death. So that's how we discovered the protein, and then we discovered the mechanism. And once it touches the protein, another protein that is bad, damaged, mutated, it kills it. So that's how I came to science, and that's how we decided in a small country not to work on something that everybody else worked, but to go the opposite direction. And that's how we discovered it. You see how much, thinking, luck, time, perseverance, believe that even this, that people tell you that you're going to commit scientific suicide, you don't believe them. And that's how it went. Okay?
Okay, it's so amazing. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think it's like you have a lot of information to tell us, but you have to cut in 2 minutes. Okay, my manager told me that we only have the time for 2 questions, the last 2 questions. Okay, I will give the first one for you. Thank you.
Hi, I'm from the Faculty of Science, and it was a wonderful talk that you was given just now. My question was about the diseases that causes by epigenetics, because you didn't talk about that, and I wonder what we would cure those diseases that caused by the wrong histone modification or DNA modification, such and such.
What was the question, Uwe?
Epigenetics.
I didn't, I'm sorry.
Epigenetics.
So you may get the same DNA sequence, but you have different histone modifications that cause different level of gene transcription and so on. So those kind of things, what are we going to do?
I didn't get that. I'm sorry, maybe because of your mask, it's got me a little bit blurred. No, I don't want you to take off the mask if you feel safe with it, but what was the question? Can you tell me? Epigenetics. Okay. You see, one word is enough for me. I only need a hook. But I need to hear the hook. Yeah, epigenetics is above genetics. Epi in Latin is above. So even if twin brothers, I mean identical twin, they came from the same egg and the same sperm. Okay, what are identical twins? That you have a pregnancy, so you have an egg and you have a sperm that go in. So you have a baby or an embryo, and then the embryo divides itself to two embryos. So they get the same identical genetic information. So when they develop in the uterus, they are still identical. But once they go out, there is changes that occur in the DNA that are above the DNA. So there is, I don't want to go, as I decided not to go to JAR, they go to methylation and amidation, and the DNA of each of them changes in a different way. So they become gradually different. Not to say that they go to different schools, and after, you know, one becomes a doctor, another one lawyer, another one lives in America, one lives in Australia, one, you know, do sport, the other one reads books all the day, you know, so they divert from one another. And therefore, even if they'll have the same tumor, it will not be the same. So therefore, I said that out of the 8 billion people that populate the planet, about 7 billion, I don't know, China never tells you how many there are, and India cannot count, so we are a little bit confused. So out of the 8 billion people that populate the planet, there are not two that are identical. And therefore, no wonder that the diseases are also different in different people. And so that's what I meant by epigenetics. So these are changes that happen after the embryo is formed already. And regular twins are a priori different because it's two sperm that go to two eggs. They develop differently in different placenta, so they are different from the beginning. But even identical twins that started from one egg and one sperm are different.
Yeah, and I just wonder if there are diseases that are manifested by epigenetics. How are we going to cure those diseases?
Yes, there are diseases that are characterized by different, and we can now map the epigenetics. We can take the DNA and read not only the sequence, but we can read the epigenetic changes. And there are drugs that are fighting epigenetic changes because they affect, you know, gene expression. I don't want to go into it. It's not complicated. But it's beyond the scope of this. Yeah, epigenetics became a very, very important field. There are already accolades. There is not a Nobel Prize yet on epigenetics, but there will be probably. One of the founders died, unfortunately. He got the Lasker Award, but David Ellis from Rockefeller University, there are several fathers to it. It's a growing field. It's a very rapidly growing field. Because initially we believed that everything is genetics. We didn't realize that there is something above genetics that also shape us. That's it? We can go home, eat?
I think not yet, because we have a last question for you. Okay, next, please.
So I'm taking us away from science a little bit because I teach English for these pharmaceutical students, not science. But just looking at you discuss your work and talk about your work, even in the past, you've talked about how when you were a boy, you would take these samples, right, leaves, and you'd stick them in the books of your father, samples. And then now, all these years later, you say things like science is your hobby, not just your work, but your hobby. So enthusiasm like that, it has to keep cultivated. We have to work on it. So for all our students here, what drives it? What helps you keep your enthusiasm? How much of a percentage is it people, love of people? Is it love of science? Or is it something completely different?
I think that this is the most important question that I was asked today, and also the most difficult and almost impossible to answer. Maybe because of that it's so interesting. And that's how to excite people, especially the young generation, to go to science. And it's true, actually, I didn't grow on science. It came because my father was a lawyer, my brother is a lawyer, my eldest brother, and my mother was an English teacher. The only thing that I can tell you is that by the age of 2 or 3, though English is not my mother language, it's Hebrew, because in Israel we speak Hebrew, I spoke fluent English already at the age of 3. That's the only thing that brought me close to any scholarliness. And my mother insisted that I learn English side by side with my Hebrew. So the two languages developed in parallel. But it was me alone that, I was always wondered about simple questions that people don't ask themselves. Why the sky are blue? Why the sky are blue? Why the blood is red and why the leaves are green? And why, and then I came to human, when you look at the veins, with old people you see it better, why the veins are blue, but when you cut it, the blood is red? So how can it be? You see here blue, look at every one of you, it's blue, but there is no blue, because when you cut it, you will find no blue. So what is it about it? So I was kind of, everything is I was asking questions all the time. So by asking questions, my father was tired of me, and my mother got tired too. So they bought me encyclopedia. So I was swallowing encyclopedias. At that time, there were books. There was no internet. And then in high school, I decided to go to biology, and from biology to medicine, and then I pulled back. So it was kind of very self-motivated. For young people, I think that you really have to suck it somehow. And it's either the parents that will push them not to science, but to knowledge. I think that it will be, there are countries, it's very interesting about education. I visit Singapore a lot. And Singapore, I just was in Singapore 3 weeks ago. And Singapore pushes science and education like no country, maybe like South Korea. They are crazy about it. The high schools and this and that, and they subsidize it, and it's really crazy. And the parents are crazy about the kids, that they will go to the best school. But then they manage to kill the kids. How? Because they want the kid to be A through. Okay, there is nothing like A through. How can you be an A through? Nobody is perfect. So by being an A through, because they want to get to the best university in Singapore, they want to get to NUS, to National University of Singapore, or to NTU. Sorry. So what they do, they pressurize the teachers to lower the level. Because if you want to have an A through, you need to lower the level. Instead of teaching the kids how to fail, and not to look at a failure like a failure, but as something that we need to think about, because if you did a mistake in an exam, it's legitimate, actually it's desired. Because then you go and you ask yourself, what went wrong? Why did I do a mistake? Let's analyze the process a priori. Didn't I understand what the teacher told me? Didn't I understand the question? Didn't I understand that? And analyze it and take it back to the board. They don't want to deal with mistakes. Because there are no mistakes. Everybody is A, so you never make any mistake. So I think that one hand is to arouse curiosity by the education system. Another way is, for example, to build museums of science. In Israel, for example, what I did, I realized that I have nothing to do. I got the Nobel medal, you get a gold medal, and you get a diploma, and so I gave it as a gift to the Israeli National Museum of Science and Technology. Now 500,000 kids see it every year, 500,000. And there is a big movie that tells my story. So you need to encourage people if they want to, you cannot force them by any means, but you cannot start at the age of 18 or the age of 20. They must be ready already when coming to the university of what they want to do. Another issue that I try to tell people is that if you do something and you are not sure about it, don't do it. There is time to change. So for example, I was in medicine, not only that I graduated the medical school, not only that I went to surgery, at the end of the day, I went to my wife and told her from tomorrow I'm becoming a student in biological sciences. I leave medicine. And so people thought that I'm crazy, that I am nuts. You have a profession, you make money, you are successful, and everything, and all of a sudden you start like a student in science. I didn't know nothing of science. I knew little. What is a pH? What is a photosynthesis? Nothing. I self-educated. The first year of my studies in science was self-education. I was swallowing books in order to catch up with the other kids students in the class. So if you are typically, even nowadays, it's even worse because people are very much influenced by this little machine called cell phone. What they do all the day, they are texting all the day. And what they text with their friends. And there is huge social pressure on people. So you go to the class, let's say that you decide to go to chemistry or to engineering, to whatever. And you are not the best in the class, you are doing okay, but you feel that it's not you. But nevertheless, you'll continue because you are afraid that people will laugh at you. Or will say, oh, he failed, he changed, he's not good, he's that. You are succumbing to a much more, and also family pressure, especially in Japan and in Korea, in these countries, that every mother wants the kid to be a doctor. Why? Because it's respected in the society. Doesn't matter that the kid hates it, that he's not good at it, let's make him a doctor. So, the social pressure of friends and colleagues and the texting and the telephone and so on enclose people, and I find it. And I tell people, look what I did. I started all over again from the very beginning because I wanted to do what my gut is telling me to do, not what my friends are telling me to do, and not what my mother is telling me to do, and not what my girlfriend is telling me to do. I want to do what I want to do. And it's very hard to convince young people, but at the end you should convince them because it's for the rest of their lives. It's not for just getting the diploma. Then you are doing something that you hate for 50 years. And you are stuck with it. And me, that I'm now 76, I have a big lab. I'm coming to the lab every day like it's the first day. I'm surrounded by young people who are 10 times smarter than I am because I'm wasting time on traveling and they are spending time on doing science. And we have very stormy discussions on how to design experiments, how to do science, what is the ethics of science, what can be done, what should not be done because it's unethical. And I should have retired a long time ago, but luckily because of the Nobel Prize, I can stay forever. I don't have to retire. The university doesn't kick me out. And so I'm enthusiastic like, wow, that's it. That's life. That's what I want to do. So let me summarize it up. There is no magic way. There are components, parents, home, museums, role models, like, we try to inspire people, not to get the Nobel Prize. If you think that you are going to get the Nobel Prize, you must be nuts. You really must be nuts. But to contribute something. And if you are good at it, then you leave a dent behind you. The idea is to be good at what you do, that it will flow out of the tips of your fingers, not something that you were forced to do, that it will come to you like, wow, it's going like so smoothly and so fast, and I feel that it's vivid, that it's flowing in my arteries. So it's all about in big way, it's all about education. What I tell young people is one sentence. Don't go to the university to gain a profession. Gain a hobby. Of course, my profession as a scientist is my hobby. And not only that, but I have a stupid university that every month pays me for that. They put a check in my bank account every month for me having my hobby. Think about it. That's the idea. And I'm not joking. I mean, I'm really taking it very seriously. Do what you really love to do. Because you are taking it for the next, we are living long now. You're taking it for the next 40, 50, you're graduating this university. In Thailand, you don't serve in the military. In Israel, at least we have 3-4 years in the military. I served 6 years in the military as a combat physician. But in Thailand, you go at the age of 18. By the age of 22, you are already an engineer. And then you have 50 years to do something that you don't like to do. It's crazy, completely crazy. So think people don't have an insight of what the course of life is going to lead them. And if you don't like something, stop. If you will think that you will be better as an architect rather than as a chemist, stop, go to architecture. Nothing will happen. Life is long. You'll have enough time to build a career. You know, I started my career in science when people thought that I'm already doomed to die. So, no, okay, so they thought, you know, let it be. So, because I felt that that's what I want to do. That's what I wanted to do. I didn't care about age, I didn't care about money, about salary, I didn't care about anything. I changed and switched, and you know, the rest is history. You know, of course, you can say, okay, you got the Nobel Prize. But I didn't go there to get a Nobel Prize, and I didn't go there to discover the ubiquitin system. I get there because of curiosity, and because of that I felt passionate about it. So it's complicated, it's really complicated, and nowadays especially, because of the cultural pressures around us, because of the telephones and Facebook and Twitter and I don't know what, it becomes really very complicated to pull out the kids and to put them on, I would say, a fruitful path and a happy path for them. It becomes very complicated. And I think that universities don't do a right job because they don't pay attention to this aspect. You get a class of chemistry, you come and teach chemistry. You don't care about who is good, there is an exam, some fail, some succeed, some this, some that. We became very mechanistic and robotic about it, and that's a mistake. Okay, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.